What's up, people? My name is Shaggy, the opinionated hippie. Today, I'm going to be discussing my favorite Genesis songs, top 10 Genesis songs. I already did the albums. I ranked all of the studio albums elsewhere on this channel, the most recent video I did. So per the unwritten YouTube law, I'm now doing my top 10 favorite songs. 7 of them are Peter Gabriel era tracks. 3 of them are Phil Collins era tracks. None of them are Ray Wilson era tracks. Yeah, it's kind of a hard list to do, only that some of their songs, like the end of Duke, there's like an instrumental that like kind of segues into something else, and the instrumental is great, but I think it's even made better by the segue, and separating them felt kind of weird, so I didn't want to separate them. There is a track that is on this list that I think also is better because of the track that follows it, but I love the first track so much that I just had to like pull it out of its sort of sequence of segue tunes that they play. There's another song on here that on the studio album, it also segues into another part that makes that other part better. But again, that other part's indexed as a separate track. So it was a little bit hard in that regard. But anyways, yeah, but that's it. I'm going to go through them quickly. At the end of when I get to number 1, I will put the list on the screen if you want to see them all in black and white on a piece of paper that's been taken a picture of and put up on screen. But anyways, here we go. My personal 10 favorite Genesis songs. Of course, when I'm done, let me know what I missed, what should be on this list, what shouldn't be on this list, and what your favorites are, because that's the way it works. I like knowing this kind of stuff. Anyways, number 10, Dance on a Volcano. This is the first track we ever hear in the Phil Collins era, the lead-off track on A Trick of the Tail. It is probably one of their most aggressively prog numbers. It still has a very smooth, polished, clean Genesis sound, but it kind of gets a little heavy towards the end. There's some really nice riffage, some really nice guitar work. I think not one of Hackett's finest guitar moments, but definitely one of his most proggy, aggressive guitar moments, I think, in the Genesis catalog. Just a great opening track. Kind of sounds a little like King Crimson at the end with some of the like, maybe a 21st Century or a Picture of the City, that kind of really fast kind of riffage type thing. It's a neat song. It's a very, nothing else after this ever even seems to try to do what this song does. But it is interesting that it is sort of the introduction to the Phil Collins world, though the Phil Collins world would veer heavily away from this towards more popper, balladier pastures. But it's a good opening salvo. Number 10, Dance on a Volcano. Number 9, Fly on a Windshield or The Windshield. This is the second song off The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And it has just an absolutely epic prog heavy jam in it. Fly on a Windshield. It starts off kind of like spooky. It's like sort of like The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. The opening track kind of fades off and we get some sort of quiet, sort of like ballady type singing before you just hear this boom, just screaming like jam with just one of their darker instrumental moments. Just Steve Hackett's guitar work is phenomenal. Just the overall vibe of the entire thing. The lyrics are about, feeling like a fly on a windshield, and it's all like peaceful and calm, and you can almost see like the fly, like just, oh yeah. And then when the music comes in, it really is the windshield just going boom and just taking that fly off into like dark areas where obviously it did not survive because it hit the windshield when the windshield was going quite fast at it. But it is just, I think, one of their such a great heavy moment on what I think is their best album. That album will appear on here only one more time. Yeah, number 9, Fly on a Windshield. Number 8, Afterglow, another Collins era song. This is the last track on Wind and Wuthering. An absolutely beautiful ballad. I think probably their best ballad. They would use it quite epically in concert. There is a phenomenal version of this on 3 Three Sides Live, it comes out of In the Cage. They do In the Cage, Riding the Scree, big chunk of Cinema Show, Colony of Slipperman, into Afterglow. At the end of Afterglow, that is when they would include More Trouble, the More Trouble Every Day double drum intro that Chester and Ralph would do on the 73 and 74, the 74 version of that. You can hear that on Roxy and Elsewhere, and also on the Erie, Zappa Erie. But Collins and Thompson would do that at the end of Afterglow. They did it once on Three Sides Live. I think on the tour after that, they did it twice. But it appears on that, and it is just, it's just amazing. But it's a beautiful ballad. It's one of those about, I think it's about just dealing with loss and accepting, the loss of a really, really close loved one. And I think it's Phil Collins. My complaint in the album video was I was saying that Collins ballads, and I don't mean ballads that Collins writes, but his voice singing the words of ballads other people wrote, I don't think he brings enough variance to make each ballad kind of stand out. I think he's very much like, this is my voice, this is the way I'm doing it. But for some reason on Afterglow, it works perfectly. I think he usually delivers a really solid vocal performance on any live versions of this. Yeah, easily my favorite ballad I think they have done. There's slow songs on this list, but this one is just, it's a ballad, it feels like. Beautiful, beautiful. Number 7, The Knife, closing track on Trespass. Just a very aggressive, keyboard heavy, dun, 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 very nice, aggressive jam. Got a little weird breakdown part in the middle that kind of veers away from that. The jam gets a little extra weird towards the end. It's kind of in your typical Genesis fashion, starts here, goes somewhere weird here, kind of returns here, throws a little more at the end, but it's just a really high energy, in your face attack by them, a very prog attack, especially with that really nice heavy Banks organ sound that kind of drives the whole thing. And this is from their second album, so we got Collins is not on here. Hackett has not joined the band yet, but it is just a hard-hitting live. And live, it was phenomenal, but just a really good, aggressive, early era track. The Knife, number 7. Number 6, the last of the Phil Collins tracks to appear on here. This is off the Abacab album, so we're talking all the way in the 80s. Me and Mary Jane. I absolutely love this song. I fell in love with it because of the Three Sides Live album. Essentially the same version, but there's a couple little vocal things that Phil Collins does on the live version that elevate what I think is already a fantastic song to even the next level. And there's just so many lines in here I like. The whole ending of this with the thing about the lights coming on one by one, and just Phil singing the little runs he does in the live version. Not on the studio version, but it's still a really good song. It's got a little like fa reggae part in it. Yeah. I don't know what it is about this song, but it just really, like, every single part of it just makes me so happy. The drum work on it is good. By far the last thing that made this list was Afterglow, which was like, a couple albums earlier. So this was like a rare sort of late era, really good track. There were some good tracks in the Phil Collins era, but this is the one to me that I've always absolutely had an incredible fondness for. Me and Mary Jane, off Abacab. Number 5, this is when we get to just 5 perfect songs at this point. Number 5 is The Cinema Show off Selling England by the Pound. Starts off all very acoustically beautiful, some excellent playing. Gabriel comes in with some awesome vocals about, two young lovers. That eventually, we get that story. We get some nice instrumental interludes in there. And then that drops into just an absolutely fantastic, like, Tony Banks led, just, I don't know what to call these, because they're not, they're solos, but he plays the same solo every time. They're not really jams because it's pre-written, but it's just like this sequence of music that kind of only Genesis does in this way. Has this weird sort of cinematic journey where you feel like it's telling a story through the solo. And so you need it almost to follow the same notes. You really don't want him to improvise it. It's like very much like a Gilmore guitar solo, but because it's on keyboards, it just feels different. And of course, the rest of the band, the accompaniment of the rest of the band is always perfect. And as good as the studio version is, this is another one where while the band has not drastically changed their songs live, the energy that they bring to like this portion of the jam and like the In the Cage from Three Sides Live is just phenomenal and lifts it to another level. Just the double drum work with Thompson and Collins both on drums during these parts just raises it to a whole other level. But yeah, just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song. And with a great jam at the end. The album version goes off into this other song, this fun little, almost not a throwaway number, but this neat little whimsical number, kind of whimsical at the end, that puts a nice little bow on the journey. But even without the bow, I think the Cinema Show is still a very, very worthy song. Number 4, The Musical Box. This is one of those where like Peter Gabriel's ability, and in the Peter Gabriel era, the band's ability to make songs that feel cinematic, that feel like you're just witnessing like an entire movie in the course of like 8 or 9 minutes. Like this is one of the perfect examples of this band doing it. You start off with these simple little like dun, dun, little themes, and then Gabriel delivers some lyrics, and we get some more sort of exploring of like simpler, more prog English folky pastoral type vibes, but then of course that eventually like things happen and we get to like more of an aggressive heavy jam that sort of releases all the sort of weird little energy that's bubbling up under the beginning, and then you get to the end and there's like sort of like a, as Gabriel does so well and so often in these songs, is there's like this uplifting ending where you're just like, oh, and we're, as the Gabriel era does, where the ending you get just sort of this like almost uplift of emotion and just this really good vocal performance. Like you get that at the end of Stagnation with those awesome Tony Banks chords. You get that at the end of the song that's number 1 on this list. You definitely get that here where the ending just like takes everything that's been going on, as diverse it is, and just focuses it in a single point that just leaves you like, that was a journey, man, and I'm happy I went on it. Yeah, amazing, amazing song. Lead off track to Nursery Crime. Excellent, excellent song. They would do the closing section of this live. You can hear the best version of this on Seconds Out. They would do Lamb Lies Down on Broadway into this closing section. They also did a version of this on, I think, the Way We Walk, The Longs, I think that's what it's called, The Way We Walk, where they did 2 live albums. I think it was after the We Can't Dance tour. And then one of them was the short songs and one of them was the long songs. And they do a medley of songs. And there is a version of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway into the closing section of Musical Box. And this is another song where Collins delivers, man. He's bringing it. And his vocal performance at the end of that in the live versions is good. So props to Collins for that. Number 4, The Musical Box. Number 3, Watcher of the Skies, just prog. We get a mellotron just to be like, hey, man, we are a prog band. We got a mellotron. I think I read somewhere once that this was actually a King Crimson mellotron at one point. Like, I think they bought it from King Crimson, or somehow it's like a literally one that they use, probably maybe on their first album. I don't know. Timing would be about right? Maybe their second album, maybe their third album. So who knows? All I know is I think King Crimson actually owned this mellotron. But it's one of those that, again, kind of stays in the same realm for the whole thing, but with just lots of little variances where you start off with just really incredible, completely huge sounding Banks mellotrons kind of solo, and then the rest of the band start to come in with this like almost like sounds like a telegraph kind of warning you that something big is coming, and Peter Gabriel comes in and sings, and then we get the energy intensifies and then kind of swells up even more at one point, and just an absolutely brilliant kickoff to Foxtrot. Phenomenal album. Number 2, In the Cage, off the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Yeah, man, another just epic song. Like the drumming on this, Phil Collins is drumming on this, the guitar playing, the bass playing, Peter Gabriel's vocal performance, the solo in the middle, the sort of post-solo kind of coda bridge before they go into the final verse, the way the drums get even crazier in the final verse. Live, they would play this song and then it would always go into like, they did Cinema Show for a while, just the solo, and then they added with like a Riding the Scree little beat brief tease, and then they added Colony of Slipperman at one point, and then the following tour they did Cinema Show, and then I think into the second half of Unquiet Slumbers off Wind and Wuthering, and then went into Slipperman, right? I think it was put in between those. But yeah, they would always throw in a lot of good like jams from other songs, knowing they couldn't play all of those other songs. And then generally that would go into Afterglow, which would close out like 20 minutes of just live perfection, really live perfection. But even the studio version of this is good. But the live version, if you like the studio and you have not heard Three Sides live, you got to check out that live version. Again, Phil Collins does a good job of bringing it on this. Yeah, never mind. That's a whole other story. And number one, the greatest prog rock song ever made. If I ever make a top 10 prog rock songs list, you already know what number one is. It's Supper's Ready. Just, 20 plus minutes of perfection. What is it, like 7, 8 different songs? Start off all like English pastoral with some absolutely beautiful playing by everybody in the band. Peter Gabriel telling a story. I think the lyrics have to do with marriage. I think the lyrics have to do with a failing marriage. They start off together. They're looking at each other. They don't quite connect like they used to. All this other stuff happens. They get distracted. Other things happen. Things get really dark at the end. And then they come back together at the end with this just uplifting, utterly magnificent, like, if they made a movie out of this, the last like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of this song would be the sun just rising or setting, probably rising. Feels like maybe it's the beginning of a glorious day. But it would just be probably a sunset. It'd be the most glorious sunset you've ever seen in your life. The ending is just, I think, one of the most, what this band does really well in the Gabriel era, especially over these really long songs, is like Supper's Ready really has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would say those 2 parts in the middle, the like Willow Farm and that other part, are probably 2 separate songs. Eggs Aching or whatever it is, into that weird flute thing, into the epic jam 9/8, into we're talking 7 or 8 different parts that are put together so effortlessly that even though they feel like 2 incredibly different songs, the beginning and that jam in the middle kind of have nothing related to each other, the transitions from one part to another are so effortless and so beautiful. It almost is like you're watching a movie and you're just like, oh, this is a scene where we're going from one thing to another, and it makes perfect sense. And it's just a perfect song. And it just has everything. It's got a great Hackett guitar solo in it. It's got a great Banks keyboard solo in it. The drumming is phenomenal. The bass playing is phenomenal. Gabriel's all over the place. It's fun. It's funny. It's whimsical. It's emotional. There's a flute solo in it at one point. It's a perfect song, people. It's a perfect song. Supper's Ready, my number one. Off Foxtrot, and that's my list of my 10 favorite Genesis songs. Thank you for watching. Let me know what I missed out, what you think I should go back and check out and put on this list, what needs to get off this list, because you don't even know why it's here to begin with. But yeah, that's it, man. Thanks for watching. Genesis, people. It's a good band, man. Good band. Did I mention how I got here? Chester Thompson, Zappa, all that? I think I did. But if not, go watch the album video. I explain it way more in depth. Thank you. Comment, subscribe, like. You know how all this works. I appreciate your time, people. Go listen to some new music and all that. All right. Peace, y'all. Bye.